Hey, what's up? This is Zack, CEO of Genzio, here live at NFT Tallinn with Krista, who is the CTO of Estonia.
Very correct.
That's literally the coolest thing. For every American who's watching this, they are probably, their minds are exploding to hear that this is a position. We think it's incredibly cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what your role entails?
This role has been in place for 5 years now. Estonia is a highly decentralized digital sort of government with all of its services. One of the things that we realized very early on is that we want the digital services to be built and developed very close to their domains, which means that, for example, police and border guard have their services developed with an IT development house that is close to police. It's not central, it's decentralized. This allows us flexibility of spinning up services very fast, and that's been really useful for the speed of digital Estonia as is. Of course, at the same time, decentralization means that things can become too different between different different services and service domains. And this is the reason why we realized two things. We need some platforms centralized, such as X-Road, and we use X-Road to make sure that data exchange is interoperable and standardized in digital Estonia between those IT development houses, between those services. And at the same time, we also have centralized digital identity, which is another cornerstone in order to make this actually happen. But despite all this, we've had a lot of fragmentation between those IT development houses. And we realized that in order to actually be up to date with cutting edge technologies, be up to date with going to cloud, because Estonia has been struggling with going to cloud because our digital state has been built 20 years ago when cloud wasn't what it is today. So in order to make certain shifts in terms of technological strategy, we realized 5 years ago that we need a central role and center sort of department that is working on this initiative. Our current digital strategy and digital agenda for the 2030, which is up to the 2030, it has a lot of technological initiatives that require central coordination and leadership. I'm also responsible for essentially spearheading our architecture community and engineering community, primarily between public sector initiatives and IT development houses, but also from private sector partners who are also actually participating in our community events and sort of these workshops that often look at various sort of information system developments and architecture that we have ongoing.
Now, that sounds like you cover a lot of different things. So getting kind of specifically into NFT Tallinn, like, why are you here?
I believe that public sector cannot be itself cutting edge, but I think public sector has a role to be pre-mainstream.
Okay.
Which means that...
pre-mainstream.
Pre-mainstream.
Okay.
So I think that startups are a way that... startups are showing the way. They show like what might actually be working. A lot of startups are failing. This is very common, obviously, in every kind of cutting-edge industry. But some of these things are still proving to be successful, which means that these are the things that Estonia is always interested in. Because we have been early adopters of a lot of technologies, including blockchain, which we have used since 2008, which is 1 year before Bitcoin became a huge thing, which most people don't really know.
But how did you use it? Yeah.
This is one of the examples where we actually adopted technology sooner than we usually would. But this was because of 2007 cyber attacks, which is, you can actually Google it on Wiki. That sentence was weird, but you can find out article about the 2007 cyber attacks that Estonia struggled with. Essentially, our entire digital state was under cyber attacks. Actually resulted in various problems for us because we knew that some of the information systems had been invaded and we had no idea what was being tampered with. And this is why we essentially had a problem that we wanted a solution for. So blockchain was one of the solutions. What blockchain does for us, and still does to this day, is that we store fingerprints on blockchain for data, which means that if we want to validate that data hasn't been tampered with, we compare it against its fingerprint. So if someone invades the system, we will know if something has been tampered with or if something has not been tampered with. If we detect that something has been tampered with, then it's a cyber incident that needs further checkups, further logs elsewhere to see what was the invasion vector and so on and so forth. And these fingerprints themselves are not data. So what it means is that government private data is not on the blockchain, only the fingerprints are. So we use it only for integrity checks. And this has been incredibly successful because it means that even though if someone invades, they cannot invade and tamper with the data without us actually knowing.
It's like digital, because of the digital identity piece.
Even without digital identity, even like if it's just a system that exchanges data with another system, if one system is broken down and those requests become malicious, then we can detect if the data in the other system has been tampered with. And this is, I think, one of the key use cases for blockchain in general for now. But as we see in this event, especially, we also see that there are other initiatives that are being looked at, other solutions where blockchain or NFTs could actually be of key value. So we want to make sure that we are aware of everything that is being done, that we are talking with various different people and thought leaders, because no government can be an expert in every field. We are of a sort of high belief that startups are showing the way, what works, what doesn't work. Then we can see what we can adopt in a small scale. And then if it's successful, then we can scale it up across the government.
That's amazing. And for you personally, like, do you trade crypto? Like, do you own NFTs? Is this something that you like are into personally? I mean, obviously, and your role and stuff, but like, are you like a Web3? Do you use Web3?
We do not use Web3 in the government, and I don't own any NFTs myself, but I obviously have my own sort of crypto wallet. Not a lot of sort of funding there, but it is, again, the idea is to sort of practice a little bit, see where is the value and where is there not. I think that it is very important. I think that in order to actually understand what could be beneficial, you have to tip your own toes into this. You cannot just, describe it from distance. And I think that this is also one of the reasons why we are here, is that I had a presentation where I asked everybody in the audience if they had read Estonian government's digital agenda. And really, there was only one raised hand across the audience. And this raises the question is that how can we, in a situation where often private sector criticizes that they are unable to work with the public sector, how we are actually unable to bridge this gap while neither side is aware of the strategic agendas of the other side. I think that it should start with everybody being aware of what are the strategic goals for either side, and then we can look at the solutions. The solutions are not coming just because private sector says that, hey, we are not involved with public sector projects, and at the same time, we do not even use the opportunities public sector gives us to be up to speed, to offer solutions, because nobody is reading the strategies or the analysis published by the public sector. I think that this is something that definitely requires sort of bridging those gaps, because 20 years ago, Estonian digital state was strongly built upon cooperation with private sector and academia. Estonia's digital government did not have the best programmers in the world, because this is not the core business of a government. Core business of a government is to serve the companies and the taxpayers and the citizens and assure the security of the state. We are not meant to be programmers, which means that we also always want input from everybody that is. And 20 years ago, this was there. We have discovered in the last 20 years, like in the last 5 years at least, that this is becoming more fragmented and the communication between the sectors is not as efficient as it should be. But we want to, take part in these events and discuss these things with a lot of people in order to bridge this gap, find new opportunities. From this event, actually, on Thursday, actually tomorrow, there's a separate event in Ministry Building with some of those companies to discuss these issues. So I think that this opportunity, bringing community together and also to to try to cooperate and find solution with the state is incredibly efficient. And as I said, Estonia definitely wants to be not cutting edge, let the private sector try out, get rich or go bankrupt. And then we would like to adopt certain solutions in small scale, pre-mainstream, before it becomes too huge already. I think that this is the advantage of Estonia. That has been an advantage so far.
That I think is absolutely brilliant, and I wish that our country did the same thing. Thank you so much for the interview. Is there anything else you want to let people know about what you guys are doing?
I can always say one thing. I think that in Estonia's case, it's important that Estonia is a small state. And being a small state, we are trying also things in small scale. And this is like a lot of governments are looking at Estonia and asking like, but why aren't you doing these things centralized? You're such a small country. Why don't you just, do this as a central sort of information system, central government IT teams? And we are saying that we are just going to be more flexible and fast by being decentralized. And this is Estonia. We have 1.3, 1.4 million people, and we are doing our digital state decentralized. And because we are doing it in a way, I don't see an excuse for any government to do any different. Because you are going to fail fast, much quicker in this way. You're not going to fail in large scale. Estonia did our digital identity across the nation in a very successful way. And UK tried this across the nation and they didn't succeed. It has been one of the use cases where...
Why do you think it didn't succeed?
Because they tried to bite too big of an apple at the same time. I think you have to always, as I've said, fail fast And then if you don't fail, scale your successes. Try out things in a small scale. Like sometimes a government or a whole state can seem so large that you sort of try to map everything into this. Because like in the case of United States, you have so many different states with different cultural and environmental expectations. And then suddenly someone wants to approach this and take everything into account. And this is bound to fail because it's just too big. Estonia already itself is too big, which means that you just have to think about those problems in a much smaller scale. Like sometimes it might sound controversial, but look at what Zuckerberg did with Facebook. He didn't start targeting the whole world in the beginning, or even the whole United States. He started small, one school at a time, one region at a time, to learn those lessons and then scale step by step. I think that digital governments really need to do the same thing. Governments cannot start with the approach of whole country at once and then let's fix all the issues, but instead let's start small and then scale up. So it would be perfectly fine for a digital state to offer some of the solutions for some states or cities in the states or even districts within a city first before for everybody else. Because if it goes wrong, it was just, this example, but at the same time, it showed the government's innovation. But if it succeeded, then we can see, state can do it. Then we see, okay, we have scaling issues. Let's try different sort of cloud platforms or different solutions there. And then we can perhaps cover the state, and then we perhaps can cover the whole nation. I think that this is, digital state should really be built in a similar way how startups try their own scaling. And I think that if we can do this, then we can build better digital states overall.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Again, I think that you're extremely forward thinking. I agree with everything you said. And I think that the way that you're talking about this makes me want to come to Estonia more because I think it's a leader in this space. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Right. Very good question.
Yeah, cheers.